भी ऐसी होती।
पिछले 100 सालों से ऐसी हर अच्छी शुरुआत का साथ दे रहे हैं हम, यूनियन बैंक ऑफ इंडिया।
एक बार आके देख लो, कहीं मैंने कोई गड़बड़ तो नहीं कर दी।
सिर्फ मेरा नाम क्यों?
अरे जिसने घर खरीदा है उसी का नाम होना चाहिए ना।
और फ्रेंड्स क्या कहेंगे?
कहेंगे कि काश अपनी बीवी भी ऐसी होती।
पिछले 100 सालों से ऐसी हर अच्छी शुरुआत का साथ दे रहे हैं हम, यूनियन बैंक ऑफ इंडिया।
एक बार आके देख लो, कहीं मैंने कोई गड़बड़ तो नहीं कर दी।
सिर्फ मेरा नाम क्यों?
अरे जिसने घर खरीदा है उसी का नाम होना चाहिए ना।
और
Good morning, everyone. We are starting the next session of the opening session part two, new normal, next normal, and beyond. PSU banks as an instrument in reviving economy. We have very eminent panelists with us, Mr. Rajkiran Rai ji, MD and CEO of Union Bank of India, Mr. CH SS Mallikarjun Rao, MD and CEO of Punjab National Bank. The session will be moderated by Mr. Tamal Bandyopadhyay, eminent author and journalist, and also Chairman Emeritus of the Banking and Finance Committee of Bengal Chamber. Over to you, Mr. Tamal Bandyopadhyay, sir.
Thanks, Arnab, and very warm welcome to everybody who has tuned in. Mr. Rajkiran Rai is also the chairman of IBA, Indian Banks Association, which has been strongly lobbied for bad bank for the past 1 year. Okay, lobby in the not in a negative sense, in the positive sense. I'm sure you'll be very happy that budget has said that. And Mr. Mallikarjun Rao leading a very, very large post consolidation, very large bank, Punjab National Bank, and both of them actually has gone through this consolidation as leader. So other banks have got merged with them. I must congratulate Bengal Chamber. I am for getting both of them leaders of two large bank and making this thing it sounds like a political statement. PSU bank as an instrument in reviving economy. Okay, I would have thought that it's the finance ministry has given the line, but I'm sure it's not the case. So let's go straight away. One is this, of course, new normal or whatever you call it. Post-COVID, things have changed dramatically. So we'll discuss about the changing scenario, and also we discuss because it talks about only PSU bank as an instrument of reviving economy. I think government is banking greatly on you. Which has been always the case. Like PMJDY, you have the lion's share, the public sector banks. I'm not talking about Union Bank or Punjab National Bank. I'm talking about the public sector banks. PMJDY, you played a stellar role. And now when you talk about the 3 trillion government guaranteed loan to MSMEs, of course, later the ceiling was raised. Again, you have playing a stellar role, right? So first thing I would ask, both of you, I'll start with on my who I see on my right, Punjab National Bank, Mallikarjun sir. Let's talk about you are not giving loans, you are risk averse. You are saying no, we have our discretion, but regulator feels and the government feels that no, you are risk averse, you are not giving loan, and you need to give loan if you want to have this revival and economic growth coming. So how do you respond to this observation, Mallikarjun sir?
Right. Good morning to all of you. First of all, revival of economy, the stellar role of PSB, public sector bank, is very critical. It is critical not from the perspective of discounting the value of private sector. Private sector recognizing their contribution. Public sector banks contribute to more than 65% of the market share currently. Second, during the course of infrastructure lending, which has happened almost a decade and a half back, it was the contribution of public sector banks in the infrastructure that has created an impetus. Now as well, when the finance minister, honorable finance minister, has declared the budget giving more impetus on investment in infrastructure as well, there is a very critical role to be played by public sector banks. So there's no doubt as far as the role is concerned. Second, coming to risk aversion by the public sector banks or banks per se, I do not agree with the very specific and scientific reason that when the lending has happened earlier, there were quite a few gaps, whether they were external or internal. External, where single window was not available in infrastructure lending, as a result of which there was a delay in completion of the projects, resulting into escalation in cost and again funding by the bank. There were various issues not necessarily attributable internally or externally, combined together. As a result, the banks over a period of time, having gone through such kind of an exposure and experience, have strengthened their credit underwriting mechanism and underwriting methods. So when they have done these credit underwriting methods more robustly at this point of time, it may appear to be more stringent in processing, which may give a feeling or understanding that risk aversion is there, which is not correct. It is in the interest of the entire ecosystem that the credit underwriting standard should be much better when we are looking for it. It will provide an opportunity to see that the investment which happens in the infrastructure or in lending otherwise moves in a more robust manner. There won't be any scope for here and there mismanagement at the level of the entrepreneur or entrepreneur not getting proper credit from the bank. So from that perspective, it is a good development at the banking space that they are very conscious in terms of the quality underwriting. And second reason, during the pandemic or in the last 1.5 years, there has been laxity on demand. Demand was not very high. If you see the tax reforms which came on 1st of October 2019, we have not seen much of a new investment in spite of the fact that government has reduced the corporate taxes. That clearly indicates that the demand has not been very high. Now with the new budget, there is a sufficient impetus on supply as well as demand. So it is a good creation of a combination of supply and demand. Now we see that in the days to come, definitely the lending will take higher growth, particularly from Q4 onwards in the current financial year.
Thank you, Mallikarjun sir. Very reassuring to hear this. Rajkiran sir, I'm talking to IBA chairman, not Union Bank MD, right? So what Mallikarjun sir said, that it is you are not risk averse. You are actually better underwriting, better risk management. That's what's happening. That's leading to this. And on the other hand, there is a lack of demand. So do you agree with that, or do you feel that no, you are actually in a situation where you find that decision is not taken better than taking lending decision, because you will not be hauled up by investigative agencies, etc., because nobody is penalized for not doing things. So better not to do anything. That's your approach. What's the scene, sir?
Yeah. Good morning. I think Mallikarjun has put it very rightly. I have nothing to add. Actually, it is more of prudence now. See what had happened now, particularly the corporate borrowers had accustomed for borrowing more easily without following the right risk management practices. Suddenly they may be finding it a bit difficult because there is more data required. They have to go through a more rigorous process. So naturally they may be thinking that banks are tightening the screws or maybe are risk averse. But that is not the case. Actually, these are the learnings. So we see there are a lot of learning from what happened earlier. So I think that is put into place a better system, better risk management, better underwriting capabilities. For some corporate customers will take some time to adjust to this new normal. So because they have to go through more rigorous process. Because this is very important for the banks, because the asset quality. See, first place you should understand that why we landed in a big mess, actually, the huge NPA cycle. It is because of the poor underwriting skills, poor credit monitoring, and repeated restructuring, which ended up in asset quality reviews. All these problems. Now, what is the learning? Learning is actually when you pick up a borrower from the first stage itself, you should be very prudent. Now, Mallikarjun touched on issues which banks have taken. Now, we also look at the outside ecosystem. Today, you look at NHA or any other player who have really changed their rules now. Now, they don't give a contract unless 80-90% of the land is acquired. They don't give unless all the environmental clearances are in place. And the HAM project for the road is a boon, actually, because it is more of annuity. And there was a toll-related risk which these people were carrying. So now more projects are coming under HAM or annuity. So the risk is only construction risk. So you don't have the toll collection risk. So like that, a lot of changes happened in the outside ecosystem, which are the learnings of the earlier period. So now we are in a much better shape. So now today, when the projects are being approved, I don't think there is no lack of financial tie-up today. They are getting the financial tie-up. That itself proves that the banks are not risk averse, because every project is online today. And last 3-4 years, we have not seen any major delays. All the projects are getting completed in time. Most of the construction companies, if you look at them, they are getting bonuses in every project because they are able to complete in time. This would not have happened without bank funding. So I think, but then it may not be seen by growth numbers, because see, when you look at the credit growth number, there are various factors which come into play. So based on that, people are telling that banks are risk averse. There are multiple factors. I will not get into those issues, why those numbers are not coming. But then banks are lending. That's why the project implementations are happening. And I'll tell you, going forward, the way the budget has come, this decade will be a big push for infra. And then, anyway, while going forward in this session, we'll touch on those issues. What are the new normals? But then I think the point I want to make is there is no risk averseness. The banks are there lending and the projects are getting implemented.
Thank you, Mr. Rai. I think it's a very reassuring from hearing from two leading bankers. There is no risk averseness. You are being prudent. And most importantly, you are saying that credit is picking up. There is demand for credit now, you are saying. And Mr. Rai, I must say that you are brutally honest in soul searching, saying that you made mistakes and you don't want to repeat the mistake. Sir, another controversial thing, if I may say so, because there are extremely 2 point of views, I would ask Mr. Rai to talk first a few minutes and then Mr. Mallikarjun. Wherein lies the truth? Because every banker on your quarterly results, when you're coming on television channels on saying that things are getting better and better, 99%, 98% collection level. Not too many people are asking for loan restructuring. Mallikarjun sahab, aapne bola tha, koi restructuring nahi hai. All of you are saying this. So which means your asset quality seems to be, there is no deterioration. But if you look at Reserve Bank of India's 6-monthly health check report, the last report in December talked about essentially the NPA could be doubled from 7% to 14% odd. And for public sector banking, it could be even 16% of your total assets. So who is telling the truth? Is RBI extra conservative, or you are hiding something? We need to take you at face value. Right, sir?
Yeah. See, it depends on what data point you are looking at.
Okay.
Say if you take the September data, because the moratorium was just over and suddenly the collections, the soft collections had just started, the stress book was quite high. So naturally, if you are drawing conclusion from that data, naturally your NPA position will look worse actually. From that point onwards, the collections have substantially improved. Banks are making a lot of efforts. So we really see stress in MSME. We don't rule out. And at the same time, I want to make it clear that it is not a zero stress situation. Now, actually, when the COVID hit us, when the moratorium came, we were anticipating a huge slippage and huge restructuring. From that point, when we look back today, the numbers are quite low. So it is not that the stress is not there. Stress is there. NPAs are bound to happen. We have already given our guidance, what will be the NPA level, what will be the restructuring book. It is not a zero kind of situation. There will be there. But then it is much better than what we thought it will be. So that is...
Or what RBI has thought? Is that so?
Definitely, I think it is much better than what we thought in September, what RBI was looking at. See, RBI has data points and they have a view much better than me. Because actually, see, I have a look at my book and try to take a call. Okay. Whereas Reserve Bank of India has multiple data points. They are better informed than us when they make some projections. But then I know my book and I'm looking at my book. Based on that, we make projections. So I'm not saying who is right, who is wrong and all that. Let us not put it that way. But then looking at my book, I draw a comfort that yes, the NPAs are bound to happen. The restructuring is bound to happen. But it is much better than what we thought initially. So it is not going to be that bad. And see, another reassuring thing is, see, when NPAs happen, when the restructuring happen, basically the outside analyst will look at that either you are quantifying that risk properly, whether you are identifying all the NPAs, you are not hiding anything. That is one thing, transparency. Second thing is whether you are carrying adequate provisions for probable losses. I think both the things are happening. I think all the banks in quarterly closing have made disclosures saying that potentially this would have been my NPA had the Supreme Court ruling been not there. We also announced that we are carrying so much of provision for COVID-related damage. Now, we are assuming that the judgment comes before March, and in March, if I have to recognize my NPA, broadly, we have projected this can be my number, this can be the restructured book, and for that, I am carrying so much of provision. That should be reassuring for people. There it can get better, it can get slightly worse than that, because it is ultimately, it is millions of accounts where we need to collect money. Actually, when you look at corporate, we have a better understanding. So we can give exact projections, which corporate can slip in March, which cannot slip and all that. When it comes to MSME, retail and agriculture, it ultimately depends on visiting that borrower and collecting the money. Now it goes down to the every branch level, millions of accounts. So now what happens? We draw certain conclusions based on the feedback we get. Now, sometimes it gets better than what we think. Sometimes it gets worse than what we think. So putting a final number will be difficult. But then, yes, the stress is there, particularly in the MSME sector. Despite all this, there is stress and there can be slippages. There can be restructuring. Agriculture, even though, if you look at percentage of GDP has done very well. I think last 1 year, the rural economy has performed the best. Despite that, whether everybody will behave on the repayment in a similar way, whether we'll still have some NPAs in agriculture. This we'll be knowing as we get closer to March. So I think I'm not ruling out the possibility. I'm not saying that there is no stress, but then it is much less than what we thought.
Excellent. Mallikarjun sir, your take on this same issue?
Yeah, in continuation to what Mr. Rajkiran Rai has said, I completely subscribe to his points. Originally, when RBI came out with restructuring in the month of August, and they've declared the report indicating that at the baseline stress level, there could be an increase at the gross NPA level of 4%, 3 to 4% across the banking industry. This was an estimate which has happened somewhere in the month of October. At that time, even as a banker, we were also estimating probably the restructured book could be anything around 4 to 5%. However, as Mr. Rai has said, the collections efficiency is improved in October and November. As a result, the requirement of restructuring has gone down drastically. Now the restructuring window was available up to 31st of December. When we have received the request and we have completed the invocation process, it centers around only 1 to 1.5% of the loan book as of March 2020. As a result of which, original estimate of 4% has come down drastically to only 1 to 1.5% in terms of the restructured book. That is one element of reduction in terms of the stress book. Second dimension is, because of the judgment pending with the Honorable Supreme Court, there was NPA identification to be done but was not done. As at the end of December, every bank has recognized and declared in the balance sheet the quantum and the provision made. So here two elements. One is recognizing the stress. Second is providing sufficiently so that we are not carrying forward the stress related to the making of provision. Now, even if you consider thus that particular quantum in each bank, it would propel anything between 0.75 to 1% of the gross NPA over and above what has been declared as end of 30th September without considering that identification, because it is pending for Honorable Supreme Court. So coming back to summarize, while RBI was correct in estimating in the month of September, October with respect to the stress to be around 3 to 4% on the baseline level, because of the collections improvement in October and November, subsequently the stress has gone down substantially. As a result, restructured book has hovered around 1 to 1.5. So while we say that at the end of December this has come down and we closely monitor, our monitoring closely will continue to be there even in the next 1 or 2 quarters, because those who have taken the moratorium, those who have taken the restructuring, how they are going to pan out in the days to come. Because everybody says the economy will go by V-shape. There are some sectors where people indicate K-shape as well. They may go down or go up after some time. So we'll have to wait and see how they're coming up. In those sectors where probably the hospitality, tourism, aviation, where human behavior is going to define their improvement in future, if the improvement is going to be on not on expected lines, there could be some stress on that. So what I say is that as on today, when all the banks have estimated the stress to be at this point of time around only 1% or 1.5%, in the days to come, all the banks will be watching carefully, monitoring carefully to see that this stress profile, how it is going to pan out. Will it get upgraded, or it will be stress continued for some more time? Even though the restructuring window is open for giving a moratorium of 2 years, close monitoring will be required, simultaneously looking at the economic growth.
Thank you, Mr. Mallikarjun. I think the things will unfold, but as of now, the bankers, two of the leading bankers are pretty confident that probably we would not have as bad a situation as we would have. We would have thought at that point some time back. Probably Reserve Bank of India is little extra conservative in its estimate of NPA rising, and the good story is, of course, that you are providing for. So even if NPA does rise, you are in the process of creating a cushion to absorb the shock. Yeah. But a lot of things I think we'll get to know for the March quarter after the Supreme Court judgment comes on the treatment. Sir, we have about 10 more minutes, 10, 12 minutes left. So we have a quick few questions, and this very critical is also the elephant in the room, the privatization of two public sector banks. Again, we want to discuss that, not to put you in an embarrassing situation. What would you say? But as I said, it all talks about the growth PSU banks as an instrument in reviving the economy. So Finance Minister in his budget spoken about that. Rajkiran sir, first to you. So were you shocked, or did you know that this is going to happen? And what's your reaction?
No, there is no shock element in this. But then at this point of time, we have not much details on privatization. See, if you look at the overall trend, I think you can anticipate that this is coming, because it is a very, very planned this thing. The government had made it very clear by way of amalgamations and all that. They want only stronger players to be in. They don't want guzzlers of taxpayers' money by wasting by way of bad these things and all that. So I think the government was very clear. So I think amalgamation was one of that step. I think maybe the next step is privatization. This was expected to come. So the government has made it very clear even earlier. See, it is not that very spontaneous things. Actually, if you really look at it, so they have already made a policy that in every space, critical space or important space, they will keep only 4 companies from the public sector space to keep a balance. And then maybe others, they will privatize. So this was coming, and banking was very much there in that list, actually. So I think it is not a shocker. But then beyond that, at this point of time, since we don't have details, it's difficult to talk. But then, yes, this is as per the overall plan of the government, I think.
So that is the government plan. But would you support this? That's one question. When given a choice, do you think it's a yes thing to do? Mr. Rajkiran, you only. I'm coming back to Mallikarjun later. And second is, being a IBA chairman, if the government seeks your view, which are the first 2 banks to be privatized? What will come to your mind?
And then I'll not take any name, because all are listed entities. All are listed entities. Let us not take any names. And it is only speculation. Even if you talk anything about privatization, it will be only speculation. Let us not get into that. And I think it's a good move, because see, public sector banks may be required for some more time for economy to balance and as a balancing force. Because right now, 2/3 of the credit market is still with the public sector banks. And we mobilize more than 70% of the deposits in the system today. So, because there is a question of confidence also, because we come from the government sector. So naturally, the role of public sector is not over. But we need stronger public sector banks and fewer public sector banks. There is no doubt about it. But then, yes, we need to have competition. I think it is made very clear gradually the government should move out of these businesses, and we leave it to the private enterprises to run these businesses. What is that right time, whether the time is ripe and all that, these are the things which can be debated. But then I
Fair
think,
Fair enough, sir. I'm sitting in your chair. You can't go beyond that. I can
Yes.
imagine that.
Yes.
Rajkiran sir, Mallikarjun sir, you are actually geographically closer to the North Block. So you will be even more difficult position, okay, to talk. But tell us, we have seen media reports that Punjab National Bank is one of the banks will be privatized and all. Now, as a matter of policy, do you think that it's the larger banks which have been created through consolidation, they should be privatized, or the 6 banks which are left out? Where would the spotlight come? What do you think?
Okay. See, first instance, digitally, nobody is geographically nearer or farer. Everybody is nearer if you think, because now today we are living in digital world. No,
Okay.
coming back to who will be the target. It is difficult to guess the name. However, what I would like to say is more than the intent to sell or privatize, there should be also an intent to purchase. There should be people who are willing to put their money on an organization. Naturally, what they will look at is the viability of the organization in the longer run and how it is going to create an impact in the ecosystem in the country to run in a permanent manner. So these factors are going to be defining. Now, whether this is a decision good for the industry, it is the right decision taken by the government. There is no doubt on that. Way back in 1993, when the Narasimhan Committee recommendations have come, at that time itself, they have advocated that the public sector major banks need not be in a big number. Now coming to 4 or 5 big banks and remaining banks, probably in terms of again another convergence or privatization is the need of the requirement. If the bank is big, support or capital and to be a systemically important bank in the ecosystem are very critical to take care of the credit requirements of the economy. If the number is very high, somebody is not doing well, it has to be supported, capital has to be given by the government, and the divergence of capital towards many institutes they have seen in the last so many years. 2 years back, as many as 11 banks were in PCA, prompt corrective action, whereas currently the situation is much better than that. So if you assess in the past as well as look currently what is there, it is very important that we have robust, strong banks, numbering maybe 4 or 5 as it is thought of in the National Committee as well as in the government, and remaining there should be some element of conversion. That conversion could be privatization, and it can happen anytime. Now, who is in state of getting privatized? It is just anybody's guess. There cannot be any formula on that. Bigger banks are required in the country to take care of the economic requirements.
You said it, sir. But tell me, you just pointed out one very critical stuff, this about the value part. Do you see there's a value in public sector bank, even in the worst of banks, Mallikarjun sir?
Yeah, definitely. Now, if you have seen in the last couple of months, there has been a good impact on the valuations of all the public sector banks in the market, because there is a good growth seen in the public sector banks by the investors. It is not to discount the capability of private sector. They are doing extremely well. There is no doubt on that. But they have already seen their galloping valuations as on today. Now you can see the galloping valuations for the public sector space in the years to come. That is why there is an investor interest.
Mallikarjun sir, there are a lot of things to discuss, but since we don't have much of time, only one more round we'll have it, which is again everybody wants to know. RK Saab, I'll keep you at the last speaker for the last round, but before that, Mr. Mallikarjun Saab, that bad bank, this finance minister has spoken about the bad bank. Well, while privatization, you will probably not consult it, but bad bank, you people are in the thick of discussions and all. So can you tell us what is the logic? Because we have 28 bad banks, ARCs in India at this point of time. One more is pending RBI's approval, that is Yes Bank, which wants to hive off 50,000 crore of bad assets to this particular ARC. So 28 you already have, some of them are pretty large. Why do you need one more bank, one more bad bank, that to own by you? I mean, isn't there a clear conflict of interest that you won't be owning, that's the banking sector will be owning a bad bank, and then you will shift your bad assets into that? What can you just tell us, just 1.5 minutes each, sir? That's it.
Right. See, first of all, bad bank is not a bad idea. Number one. Number two, it has been under the discussion in public domain for quite some time, even at the IBA level. And even from IBA, on behalf of all of us, we have recommended to RBI as well as to Government of India. Now, how does it is different from the 28 or 27 and odd ARCs? In the ARCs currently, they procure the assets from the banks. The assets are funded by many banks in a group. It could be consortium, it could be multiple banking. So ARC will be purchasing only when there is an intent on the bank to sell the asset through the process. As a result, even if it is acquiring part stake in one asset, if other bankers who have funded are not selling, the ARC will not have a comprehensive control to take care of the asset. So that is one difference, major difference the bad bank will take care of. How will it take care? Bad bank being promoted by the banks, we will not be selling to bad bank. Bad bank will be only a facilitator, so that the ARCs ultimately are those who are purchasing the assets will be accessing the bad bank where all the assets are aggregated, so that they will be dealing with only one bad bank, and there is a early resolution and there is a visibility with respect to finalizing the value. Otherwise, if you are procuring an asset through purchase on different times, same asset, paying money differently to different organizations or banks, the valuations go here and there. At one point of time, valuation could be something, now it is different. Whereas bad bank will aggregate the assets, and when it is sold to ultimately a bidder, successful bidder through transparent process, he has a visibility of the valuation of the company he is purchasing. And if it is an ongoing concern to take it forward, there is also visibility for him if any further investment is required. Or if he is going for liquidation, there as well he has a visibility with respect to the extraction out of liquidation. So it's going to create a wonderful mechanism, smoothness in terms of hassle in the process of bad assets, which are
Thank you. Thank you, Rajkiran Sab. Last word is yours. Whatever Mr. Mallikarjun has not said, can you please add? Because there's a lot of discussion, debate in the public forum on this bad bank.
Yeah, I'll give only 3 points.
Sir.
Concern of the public and mostly the outsiders is on the moral hazard, because the bad bank is a moral hazard, because if the banks can park their NPAs in this ARC and get away with that without doing much, then that is a moral hazard, and sufficient precautions are taken so that this doesn't happen. So I think you need not be concerned about this issue, because we have taken sufficient precautions so this doesn't happen. So there is no moral hazard. The two positive things is, one is consolidation, another is management bandwidth. Okay, because now today any NPA you take, it is spread over 10, 12 creditors. Any decision making process, it involves a lot of time, and there are a lot of issues. Everybody can be right, because every creditor can think differently, but ultimately it affects the resolution. Now, this what ARC does, this National Asset Reconstruction Company, what is going to do is consolidation of all the loan books at one point, and that one fellow will take the decision. It is easy for resolution, and we can find better buyers because the decision making process is pretty quick. That is one thing. Second is the management bandwidth. Today, any NPA, it takes a lot of time. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah. So, like
You're audible.
Yeah. See, it takes a lot of management bandwidth. Any resolution you take, some of the big resolutions we are handling now, even at our level, it involves a lot of time, a lot of discussions, attending so many meetings. It is not that easy. So, big resolutions take a lot of management time. So now we will be freed up to do something productive rather than getting involved in this issue. So it releases a lot of management time. So I think this is a good model. And actually, to add one more point, if I have time, is the asset management company structure. ARC, as Mallikarjun rightly said, is more like a trust which will hold all these assets on our behalf. And there will be asset management company which will come. It will come more, it's proposed that it should have more private sector talent and alternate investment funds and other kind of agencies which are into stress related sectors, and they will handle this and get us better resolution, better realization.
Log out হয়ে গেছেন, হ্যাঁ।
Yeah, Rajkiran Sab, you're audible.
Yeah. I think Tamalji got disconnected, I think.
Yes, sir. He will be joining in a second. He's just trying to.
I'm done with my this thing. I just complete
Okay.
that
Let us.
asset management company is a good concept on the top of ARC. Yeah.
Okay. So with this note, we will just conclude this session. It had been a wonderful session, and we are really honored that both of you have joined despite of your very busy schedule. We are really thankful to Mr. Rajkiran Raiji, MD and CEO of Union Bank of India, and Mr. S.S. Mallikarjuna Rao, MD and CEO of Punjab National Bank. We are really thankful to you. With this, we are closing this session, though Mr. Tamal Bandyopadhyay is back and joined in a second. He's there with us. And with the mark of this, we'll be closing the session. And let's say the last, if the moderator wants to say something.
No, I'm sorry. My sincere apology. Blame it on my connectivity. Suddenly it went off. So I think we could not have a more candid and frank discussion, both Mr. Rajkiran and Mallikarjun Sahab. As somebody said that you are the warriors of government, the bankers. So I think wearing the shield of a government warrior, you could not have been more articulate than this. Certain things you could not say. I can imagine them. I appreciate, and I'm sure there are many more questions, but we have come to the end. And sorry for the glitch. My apology. Okay. Thank you, sir. Stay safe.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Bye.